Could our own gut health be subtly influencing our motivation to get off the couch?
It's a fascinating possibility, isn't it? That your gut bacteria might be, in a way, whispering to your brain about whether or not to go for that run.
Incredible. And are there specific microbes that might actually help athletic performance?
This is where it gets really specific and quite remarkable. Scientists identified a particular bacterium called Veillonella atypica. They found it was much more abundant in the guts of elite marathon runners right after they finished a race.
Veillonella. Okay, what does it do?
What's super interesting about Veillonella is its unique metabolism. It actually consumes lactate.
Lactate, like lactic acid, the stuff that makes muscles burn during hard exercise.
Exactly. That byproduct of intense exercise that contributes to muscle fatigue. Veillonella eats it. And even better, it converts that lactate into propionate, one of those beneficial SCFAs we talked about.
It turns a waste product into a beneficial fuel.
Essentially, yes. And when the researchers took Veillonella and introduced it into the guts of mice, those mice showed significantly enhanced running endurance on a treadmill test. They could run longer.
That is absolutely phenomenal. A direct link between a specific microbe, its metabolic activity, and actual physical performance.
It really is. It opens up all sorts of possibilities for the future, maybe even targeted probiotic strategies for athletes, so we're not there yet.
Like having tiny microbial training partners optimizing your energy use. Okay, beyond performance, let's talk mental health. Mood, anxiety, depression. How does the exercise-gut-brain connection play into that?
This is a critically important area, and the links are becoming clearer. The gut microbiome profoundly influences serotonin levels.
Serotonin, the feel-good neurotransmitter?
Right. Most people associate it with mood regulation in the brain. Here's the kicker. Over 90% of your body's total serotonin is actually synthesized in your gut.
90%, that's staggering. Made in the gut.
Primarily, yes, by specialized cells called enterochromaffin cells, but gut microbes play a huge role in regulating this process.
How?
Well, first, serotonin produced in the gut doesn't easily cross the blood-brain barrier to directly affect mood centers in the brain. It acts locally in the gut, influencing motility and secretion. However, yes, gut microbes are deeply involved in modulating the metabolism of tryptophan. Tryptophan is the essential amino acid that's the precursor, the raw material, for making serotonin.
Okay.
By influencing how tryptophan is broken down and used, gut microbes can indirectly affect serotonin pathways, potentially influencing brain serotonin availability or function over time. Plus, certain bacteria themselves, species of Candida, Escherichia, Enterococcus, Streptococcus, can actually produce serotonin within the gut environment.
So the microbes are messing with the supply chain for this key mood chemical. And some are even making it themselves.
They're definitely part of the complex regulatory system. And given how important serotonin is for mood and its links to conditions like generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, and major depressive disorder, this gut connection is obviously highly significant. Serotonin also influences food intake and maybe even carbohydrate preference.
Wow. Are there other pathways involved besides serotonin?
Yes, another important one also involves tryptophan. Besides becoming serotonin, tryptophan can also be metabolized down a different path to form kynurenine and its derivatives.
Kynurenine.
Altered levels in this kynurenine pathway have also been linked to mood disorders. For example, there was a study where mice received fecal transplants, essentially transferring gut microbes from human patients diagnosed with depression.
And what happened to the mice?
Those mice started showing increased anxiety-like behaviors, and they had higher levels of kynurenine metabolites in their system. Also, germ-free mice, the ones bred with no microbiome at all, show altered tryptophan metabolism and exhibit anxiety-like behaviors.
So it really highlights that anxiety and depression are complex, but these gut metabolites, these chemical signals influenced by microbes, are definitely part of the picture.
Exactly. They're influencing factors. And this brings us back to exercise. We know exercise is a well-established, effective intervention for improving symptoms of both anxiety and depression.
Right.
So the compelling hypothesis is that the positive changes exercise induces in the gut microbiota could be contributing significantly to these mental health benefits. Perhaps by positively shifting these tryptophan pathways, reducing kynurenine, maybe boosting serotonin signaling indirectly, and also by reducing that chronic low-grade inflammation, which itself is increasingly linked to depression.
That's a really powerful idea. Part of why exercise makes us feel better mentally might be happening via our gut bugs and the chemistry they influence. Does this connection extend to cognitive function too? Like memory, thinking clearly?
Absolutely. There's a strong link emerging there as well. Remember that chronic low-grade inflammation we keep mentioning?
Yes, linked to gut health and exercise helps reduce it.
Well, that same low-grade inflammation, which also tends to increase as we age, is strongly associated with cognitive decline and a higher risk of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. So exercise, partly through its positive effects on the gut inflammation axis, offers a really promising non-drug strategy to support brain health.
Okay, so reducing inflammation helps the brain. Are there more direct ways the gut changes from exercise help cognition?
Yes, those SCFAs, particularly butyrate again, seem to play a role here too. Butyrate is small enough that it can cross the blood-brain barrier and exert effects directly on brain cells.
It gets into the brain.
It does, and studies suggest it can do beneficial things there. It's known to stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, basically helping brain cells create more energy-producing factories. It improves their respiratory capacity, which supports overall brain function.
More energy for brain cells.
Exactly. And in animal models of Alzheimer's disease, giving butyrate has shown promise in actually improving memory function. It might also help prevent the cognitive decline sometimes seen with obesity, possibly by influencing metabolic and inflammatory processes within the brain itself.
So eating fiber to feed your butyrate-producing microbes and exercising, that could literally be helping to power your brain cells better.
That's the exciting potential, yes. And we're also seeing evidence from brain imaging studies using fMRI.
What do those show?
These studies show that regular aerobic exercise can enhance functional connectivity, meaning different brain regions are communicating more effectively within key networks involved in thinking and cognition.
Like which networks?
Things like the default mode network, which is active when your mind wanders or you're thinking about yourself. The frontal executive network, crucial for planning, decision-making, impulse control, and also networks involved in attention and language. Exercise seems to strengthen the connections within and between these areas.
So a better connected brain.
Effectively, yes. And studies clearly show exercise improves specific cognitive functions like memory and executive function. It's even been shown to reduce the natural shrinkage of the hippocampus, a key memory region that often happens with age.
That's huge. Is it just aerobic exercise?
Aerobic exercise gets a lot of the focus for these effects, but research is also showing benefits from resistance training, lifting weights for things like global cognition and maintaining gray matter volume in the brain. So a mix is probably ideal.
Okay, incredibly strong evidence for exercise benefiting the brain, and the gut connection adds this whole other layer of how it might be working. One more brain link.
Yeah.
What about our relationship with food, cravings, choices? Does the gut influence that too?
It seems like it might. The gut microbiome, which we know is shaped by both what you eat and how active you are, appears to play a role in how your brain responds to food cues.
How so?
Well, studies comparing sedentary individuals, often with less healthy diets, to active individuals generally find the sedentary group has lower gut diversity and often higher body fat. That's maybe not too surprising.
Right.
But then researchers use fMRI to look at brain activity while people view pictures of different foods, sometimes before and after exercise. And what they're finding is quite interesting.
What are they seeing?
Both regular, habitual exercise and even single sessions of exercise seem to reduce the activity in brain areas associated with reward and pleasure places like the insula, the orbitofrontal cortex, OFC, the putamen when people are shown pictures of high-calorie, often less healthy foods.
So exercise makes cake look less appealing to your brain.
That's the fascinating implication. And interestingly, some studies even show the opposite effect for healthy food, sometimes an increased neural response to images of low-calorie foods after exercise.
Wow. So exercise could literally be helping to reprogram your brain's reward system around food, possibly via signals coming from your gut.
That seems to be the idea being explored. The gut microbes, influenced by your activity level, are part of this complex signaling network talking to your brain, potentially altering how rewarding you find different types of food.
Okay, this journey has been incredible. We've gone from the basics of the gut microbiome to how aerobic exercise really transforms it, and then explored all these potential knock-on effects: physical health, metabolism, inflammation, mental well-being, brain function, maybe even food choices and motivation. It sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, science is rarely simple, right? There are always complexities and confounding factors to consider.
Absolutely. So what are some of those important nuances we need to keep in mind here? What makes this picture, well, less straightforward?
The biggest one, and we've touched on it a few times, is diet. It really bears repeating. What you eat is absolutely paramount in shaping your gut microbiome. It significantly influences how your gut responds to anything else, including exercise.
So diet is always a major confounding variable in the research.
Huge. Because, as we said, people who exercise regularly often eat differently from those who don't. Trying to tease apart the effects is a constant challenge for researchers. While the newer studies are doing a better job controlling for it, you simply can't discuss the exercise-gut link without acknowledging diet as its critical partner.
Right. You can't just out-exercise a terrible diet when it comes to gut health, and their effects are all tangled up.
Exactly. They work together, or sometimes against each other. Another interesting factor the research highlights is where you live specifically, potential differences between urban and rural environments.
How does living in the city versus the country affect this?
Well, studies show physical activity patterns can differ. People in rural areas might get more physical activity through their jobs, occupational activity, but sometimes engage less in structured leisure time exercise, like going to a gym or for planned runs compared to urban dwellers. And these differences in the type and context of physical activity seem to influence the gut microbiome's diversity and composition too.
And does that link to health outcomes?
It can. For example, lower levels of that leisure time physical activity in some rural populations have been linked to higher rates of obesity. So addressing these kinds of urban-rural disparities in activity often means looking at specific local barriers, things like access to gyms or parks, safe walking routes, community programs. These social and environmental factors indirectly but significantly impact gut health by influencing how easy or practical it is for people to be active.
So having a safe park nearby or affordable gym access could actually matter for your gut microbes.
It appears so, yes, by influencing behavior. And then maybe the most fundamental complexity is just the incredible variability between individuals.
Right, everyone's different.
Massively different. Each of us has a unique microbial community inside us. It's shaped by our genetics, what microbes we were exposed to early in life, our diet history, antibiotic use, current lifestyle, everything.
So because everyone's starting point is unique.
Exactly. It means that individual responses to the same exercise program can vary quite a bit. What boosts a certain beneficial bacterium in one person might have less effect, or even a different effect, in someone else.
Are researchers seeing this variation in studies?
Yes, definitely. It's particularly noticeable when comparing how exercise affects generally healthy people versus clinical populations, people who already have a specific health condition, like IBD or metabolic syndrome.
How do their responses differ?
Well, some studies suggest that certain beneficial bacteria, maybe specific species within Rosburgia or Lachnospora, might actually increase more significantly in clinical groups after exercise. The thinking is perhaps they were starting from a lower baseline, a deficiency state.
So they had more room for improvement in those specific areas.
Potentially. Conversely, measures of overall microbial diversity, sometimes called alpha diversity, often seem to show a greater improvement in healthy populations compared to some clinical groups who might have a more deeply entrenched imbalance or dysbiosis that's harder to shift.
So your health status when you begin exercising really shapes how your gut changes in response. Are scientists also looking at other factors, like differences between sexes or based on ethnicity?
Absolutely. Understanding how factors like biological sex, genetic background, ethnicity influence the microbiome's response to exercise is a really key area of ongoing research. For example, there are pilot studies looking specifically at bacteria associated with conditions like high blood pressure in specific populations, like Black athletes, to see if there are unique microbial signatures or exercise responses there.
So it's moving towards a much more personalized picture.
That's the goal. Figuring out the general principle exercise is good for the gut was the first step. Now the challenge is understanding the nuances and tailoring advice. While we know exercise is generally beneficial, figuring out the optimal type, intensity, duration for each individual's gut health is the next big hurdle.
Makes sense.
And just to reiterate that point about intensity, while regular aerobic exercise builds that resilience we talked about, acute excessive physiological stress from really extreme exercise can still temporarily impact the gut negatively for some people. Mm-hmm. It's usually about finding that sustainable consistency, that balance, rather than pushing to extremes constantly.
Right. Consistency over intensity, maybe.
Oh.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Let's try and boil it down. What are the main takeaways for someone listening?
I think the clearest takeaway is that aerobic exercise is a really powerful and thankfully accessible tool for cultivating a healthier gut microbiome, one that's more diverse.
And boost the good guys.
Exactly. It significantly boosts populations of beneficial bacteria, especially those crucial producers of short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which we've seen play so many vital roles in health.
And importantly, these changes aren't just happening in isolation down in your gut. They're connected to benefits throughout your body and, fascinatingly, your mind.
That's right. The positive shifts we see in the gut microbiome with exercise are associated with a whole cascade of benefits. Improved metabolic health, a stronger gut barrier, which means less leaky gut, reduced chronic inflammation, enhanced immune function, really significant links to better mental health and cognitive function.
And maybe even improved athletic performance and shifting food preferences.
Potentially, yes. The picture is broad and interconnected.
So, for you listening, maybe you're thinking, okay, how do I actually apply this? Based on the sources we looked at, what are some practical steps people can take to support this exercise gut connection?
Well, the good news is it doesn't have to be super complicated or extreme. The research really points to the power of consistent, moderate activity. Simple movement is effective. Like walking. A brisk 20-30 minute walk, especially after a meal, can significantly improve gut motility and aid digestion by stimulating that peristalsis. Gentle activities like yoga are also great, particularly poses that involve twisting, which can sort of gently massage the digestive organs. Plus, yoga is great for stress reduction, hitting that gut-brain axis benefit.
Okay, walking, yoga, what else?
Strengthening your core muscles helps support overall abdominal function, which aids digestion and motility too. Low-impact cardio, think cycling, swimming, rowing, those are excellent for boosting that crucial blood flow to the gut gently and consistently without necessarily causing excessive stress.
So gentler, consistent cardio is good.
Seems to be very beneficial, yes. And don't forget the direct stress management piece. Things like deep breathing exercises or meditation. They actively help calm the nervous system, engage the vagus nerve, and shift your body into that beneficial rest and digest mode, which is when your gut functions optimally. It's really about finding forms of movement you actually enjoy and can stick with consistently.
That's encouraging. It doesn't have to be running marathons to make a difference for your gut. Regular walks, some yoga, maybe swimming, that can all help cultivate your gut garden. Now, we acknowledge there's still things we don't fully understand. What's next for research in this area?
Well, while we have really strong evidence for the association exercise is linked to gut changes, which are linked to health benefits, the next big step is more long-term interventional studies. Studies designed specifically to pin down the precise causal pathways.
So proving that the exercise caused the gut change, which caused the health benefit.
Exactly. Mapping out exactly how specific shifts in microbial composition and function triggered by exercise directly translate into measurable, lasting health outcomes in different groups of people. That's a key goal.
And looking even further ahead, what's the ultimate vision?
The future is almost certainly heading towards more personalized approaches. As we understand more about why individuals respond differently based on their baseline microbiome, genetics, lifestyle, the hope is to develop more tailored strategies. Maybe specific dietary recommendations to complement an exercise routine for maximum gut benefit, or perhaps even targeted prebiotics or next-generation probiotics designed to help optimize an individual's microbiome response to exercise. Tailoring fitness advice not just based on physical goals, but on nurturing your internal microbial ecosystem too.
Wow. That's truly thinking about health from the inside out down to the microbial level. Okay, to leave our listener with a final thought to mull over.
Yeah.
Knowing all this, that old phrase, gutting out a workout, it kind of takes on a whole new literal meaning, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's not just about pushing through fatigue mentally or physically. You're potentially building a stronger, more resilient internal ecosystem. Your gut microbes might be benefiting right alongside your muscles and heart, maybe even helping you perform better.
It fundamentally reframes how we can think about the widespread benefits of just moving our bodies. It's not just about burning calories or building muscle. It's about tending to this crucial internal garden.
It really does. It makes you wonder. Thinking back through our conversation, what aspect of this whole exercise gut connection surprised you the most, or did you find most fascinating? For me, I think that Veillonella story, the lactate-eating bacteria boosting endurance in mice, that was pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's a great example. For me, I think it's the sheer intricacy of the communication on the gut-brain axis. The idea that microbial metabolites, these tiny molecules produced by gut bugs, could be influencing something as fundamental as our motivation to exercise or our preference for certain foods. The depth of that biochemical conversation happening inside us is just far richer and more complex than we probably ever imagined.
Absolutely incredible. Well, we've really only scratched the surface today, but hopefully we've illuminated some of the fascinating links between moving your body and the microscopic world within you.
Yeah, hopefully it sparks some curiosity.
We hope this deep dive has given you some surprising insights and maybe some practical takeaways too. Let us know what questions this sparked for you. What did you find most interesting or surprising? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.
Yeah, please do share your questions and reflections.
Thanks so much for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you on the next one.